Welcome, everybody, to Phase 3, Lesson 3, Lasting Impressions. This is the last one. I'm so excited. We have covered a lot of ground in this teaching, and this one here is actually one of my favorites because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where kids actually end up making a huge difference in the culture when they do things that promote a more, kind and loving environment. And it really comes down to them. It comes down to what they do. And this is going to make sense as we get into this, but the impressions happen organically. Sometimes they can happen mechanically, but we'll get into that. But I think you're going to really like this a lot. Yeah, so how does real culture change? Culture is not just built through policies, assemblies, or posters. It's built through how students treat one another and what they say to one another when adults are not in the room. When students recognize their own value, they're more likely to value others. This shift transforms school culture. It happens through impressionable impressions. Stealing a line from social media, the Value Up culture building system is designed to implement a system of value up impressions, direct and passive impressions. First, let's talk about direct impressions. The culture is impacted when a student resists the crowd and acts from conviction instead of conformity. It's peer-to-peer, spoken aloud, and it creates culture. This picture was taken from I think it was a coach that gave this to me. It was one of their players, the girl in pink, was one of their students, and he saw this moment and he just took a picture of it and he thought, wow, here she was tying the shoe of the opponent they were playing. And it just was it was a really cool moment. It's kind of a direct impression because other kids were watching and seeing her, act of kindness, small act of kindness, but that's what we're talking about. These direct impressions where kids just do these things on their own really make an impact. And then there's passive impressions, posters, mission statements, announcements, social media posts, and even what adults say to students may resonate with the school culture, but they don't create it. Passive impressions are very important because they support the culture, yet they're not strong enough on their own to shift negative social norms. Direct and passive impressions working together. Value Up educators will use their influence to create platforms for students to use their voice and create direct impressions. Here's the goal: 100 direct impressions per student per year, 500 passive impressions. Why do we track it? Tracking that whole process is important because a lot of times there are value up moments going on that we don't even know about. And, it's kind of a weird, tension because you don't want it to be obvious that you're tracking it. But at the same time, if good things are happening, like that picture of that girl tying that girl's shoe, I actually used that picture when I was doing the assembly and I threw it up there because I wanted that to be noticed. I wanted the other students to go, oh, that's pretty cool. And again, that's a passive impression. It's not the picture was a passive impression. When it was happening on the field, it was a direct impression. And so, tracking it and trying to manage it and find out who is having these moments is important because again, you're trying to get these impressions, direct or passive, in front of the student body as much as you can without it being obvious that you're doing that. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of a weird tension, but that's what you're trying to do. Another way passive impressions and direct impressions can work together is these student-led discussions that, we're going to provide stuff for you. So weekly brief value up discussions, 5 to 10 minutes long, during homeroom or a designated time. One student reads a value up statement and a short group discussion follows using provided discussion guides. Here's some key tips for discussion success. Rotate the student leaders. Rotate the kids that are going to be leading the small groups. Teach them how to lead a discussion using the handbook. You can even take a whole day, like a whole discussion time, to talk about, how to do it, right? And the Impact team has the handbook, like I said, and you guys can get that from them, and it goes through the protocols on how to lead a small group. You have to resist dominating or scripting outcomes, right? Teachers want to do that. You want to make sure it's going the right way. That's not what this is for. This is for, them discussing, them getting what they feel out. So you're not really trying to teach anything, right? Discussions are about exploration, respect, and student voice, not adult control. Optional. Okay, so break into larger Larger groups need to like maybe work into small groups of between 5 and 7. That's pretty optimal for that kind of thing. You don't want to go bigger than that because then the kids don't really get involved. The smaller the better. I say 4 to 6, anywhere in there. Discuss the benefits of and challenge them, to get involved in this, right? And then, make some mental notes, even maybe some physical notes later after the kids leave of what you noticed and, maybe a direction you might want to go in, next time. Language is important when it comes to impressions, right? Language is important in creating a positive culture because it shapes perception, reinforces values, and sets the tone of how people treat each other. When language is intentional, encouraging, and inclusive, it helps students feel safe, seen, and supported. It normalizes kindness, respect, and effort. On the flip side, sarcastic, dismissive, or harsh language, even if it's subtle, can normalize disrespect, fear, or exclusion. Language doesn't just reflect culture, it creates it. Without it feeling too weird, we're trying to create a value up language, right? Subtly bring our values into, the culture of the social world in your school. So to build a strong value up culture, the language used by adults and students must consistently reflect its principles. It starts with intentional, even scripted phrasing, which becomes natural over time. Key practices include adults modeling positive language daily, encouraging student-to-student affirmation, and celebrating even small moments where students speak value to each other. These consistent verbal cues help normalize a culture where everyone feels seen, respected, and valued. In the Value Up Handbook, there are actual phrases that we're going to make optional for you to use for different sporting events, activities, things like that, where you're going to read before the practice, before the play practice, before the activity that's going to happen. And basically it just says, hey, we're a Value Up school, we're a Value Up drama team, we believe this. And it's going to feel mechanical, and we get that, but eventually what we want you to do is to create your own. So once you see the value in it, and again, using that language and trying to create a different vernacular, a different language in, subgroups like, the drama team, the band, a wrestling team, that kind of thing, it's going to get in the fabric of that culture. And so hopefully what will happen is you create your own. You guys maybe take a time where you get the captains, or you get the kids together and you say, hey, look, we want to create a creed that basically, says, hey, this is what we're about. We're a Value Up school. We believe in the value of others, the intrinsic value of others. And we performance is not our key. We'll take some of the language that, that we've given you, but put it in your own way. And I think that is, would be optimal, for this program. And this supports identity. Students regularly read and internalize the Value Up creed at gatherings. We recognize that each person is of equal value. A person's worth is not determined by appearance, success, intelligence, athletic ability, or past behavior. Our differences strengthen us and do not divide us. This is just one example of what you can do with that creed. Key moments to reinforce identity. Before every practice, event, meeting, or club, allow students to create their own personalized creeds for their teams, clubs, and classrooms. Here's the challenge. Draft a custom Value Up creed specifically for your school. Like I said, that would be really cool to be able to have a time where you get the kids together and say, hey, let's come up with our own thing that reinforces these values. Eventually, we would like to see Value Up events, right? Because Value Up events like food drives and community projects promote a Value Up culture by giving students real opportunities to live out empathy, connection, and purpose. These activities shape the focus from self to others, reinforcing the idea that everyone has something valuable to contribute. When students act on these values, it deepens their sense of identity in those values and helps create a more unified, respectful school environment. I really like this. I've seen this in action. Acting on positive values deepens conviction because behavior reinforces belief. When students make kind, courageous, or selfless choices, especially when it costs them something socially or emotionally, they experience the impact of those values firsthand. This lived experience strengthens internal alignment, turning abstract ideas into personal truth. Doing what you believe in makes you believe in it more. Celebration is really important. Harvesting value up moments is crucial for building momentum and sustaining a positive culture. By celebrating students who live out value up ideals and rewarding behaviors that align with those values, schools reinforce what matters most. This recognition encourages repetition and helps positive actions spread throughout the student body. You can do this by doing a couple things like student-led adult monitored value up social media pages. That's a mouthful, but basically getting some kind of a, Instagram or TikTok for your school that promotes the value up messages. Obviously, you need to monitor that. Adults need to monitor that. Feature value up stories in school newspapers and newsletters. Anytime you can put an event that happened or, something organic that happened and, not embarrass a student, but put that in the paper, that's amazing. Video testimonies from students showing real impact. That's awesome. If you have some kind of a news thing in your school, a news program, throw those value up moments in there. They're really impactful. Here's the yearly implementation goals, year 1 and 2. Let's start with year 1, laying the foundation. You want to kick off with a value up assembly and an immediate follow-up discussions. Send surveys to gauge student perceptions and needs. Embedded value up language and ideals school-wide. Classrooms, hallways, announcements, athletics, that language that we talked about. We want to engage parents through communication about becoming a value up school, and we're going to provide a teaching for parents that they can just watch online. Sometimes we do it live when we do the assembly, but we also have it on virtual, on video as well. Expect resistance from upperclassmen, and you have to focus on underclassmen to plant the seeds now. But some of those kids, they're by the time they're juniors and seniors, they've got their mindset pretty much set. And I'm not saying that you can't impact them, but you don't want to put your eggs in that basket because again, a lot of their mindsets are already set. Know that, year 1 will feel like pushing a boulder uphill, and that's normal. Year 2, you're embedding the culture. You want to make it even deeper, right? So optional but recommended, a second value up assembly with myself or a new speaker. We have, I do have a good second year program myself, but we also have other speakers that can supplement if we need to do that. Relaunch the discussions early, refresh with new posters, ideas, and messages, and we're going to provide that for you. Showcase video testimonials of students talking about the positive changes. Maybe if you had a student from the year before that was really impacted by the value up message, you definitely want to highlight that, put that on video, and get that in front of the kids. Launch a school-wide value up project to build unity and excitement. And we're going to give you more information about that. My friend Matt Hamilton up in Michigan is excellent at that. He has really mastered that. And so we're going to provide some framework for that for you from him. And I think you'll really enjoy that. And then, start involving high schools, teaching younger students. The more they can take what they've learned and implement that back down into the younger children, even going back into elementary, and we'll talk some more about that because we're going to give you some more resources for that kind of thing too. So yeah, I think that year 2, I think is going to feel a little better to you. Yeah, final thoughts for educators on this. Transforming a school's culture is a slow, intentional process. It requires patience. It requires student voice. It requires adults modeling and believing in every student's value, even when it's difficult. Your investment is worth it because students who see their own value will change everything. Okay, so wow, we've made it. You have made it. You did 9 lessons listening to Mike Donahue. So proud of you guys. Listen, it's been a passion of mine to help schools transform their culture by giving student voice and doing some of these things we've talked about. Like I said, it's not an easy process. This is hard. Changing a culture, if you're going to move it from pie in the sky and all these philosophical things, we can make this place a better place. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It is. It's just blood, sweat, and tears. It's individually going after those kids and trying to help them see their value. It's, providing platforms to give them a voice. It's all the things that we talked about. And I know it's not easy, and it's tough. It's hard work. But if you do the work and you push through the first couple of years, it's going to end up being something that helps you in the long term, because the more this gets into the culture, it transforms, it goes downhill, right? It's most schools have a negative or neutral culture that, it's like pushing a boulder uphill to get it to change. But once that boulder hits the other side and starts rolling down the hill, then it makes your job a lot easier. So thank you for your investment in this first couple of years of doing this Value Up program. That, again, is going to require some elbow grease and, getting in there and, being intentional about this stuff. But I'm available. The Impact team for your school has my contact information. And if you yourself want to reach out to me and just ask me questions about this, or if I can be of any help in any way, please don't hesitate to ask to, get a hold of me. I'm not interested in just being a one and done guy that comes into a school and, has a really good assembly, but then, you just leave town and let everybody just kind of pick up the pieces. I want to help you pick up those pieces. So thank you so much for letting me be involved in your school, and we will see you soon. I look forward to hanging out again sometime. All right. Bye, everybody.